Chapter 1. What are the banned books of the Bible? Why isn't the Book of Enoch in the Bible? As one of the oldest and most mysterious religious books ever written, it describes fallen angels known as the Watchers, the mysterious Nephilim, visions of heaven, and the coming judgment of the world. The New Testament even appears to quote it. Yet despite its influence on early Jewish and Christian thought, it is missing from nearly every Christian Bible today. The mystery deepens when we discover that copies of the Book of Enoch were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, proving it was widely read before the time of Jesus. If so many people knew this book, why was it ultimately left out of the biblical canon? Many people refer to Enoch and similar writings as the banned books of the Bible. While that phrase creates curiosity, the historical story is far more nuanced. These books were generally not outlawed or hidden away. Instead, they were debated, copied, studied, and ultimately excluded from the biblical canon because religious leaders concluded they did not meet the standards required to be recognized as inspired scripture. The Book of Enoch is only one of several ancient writings that never became part of most Bibles, but it is by far the most influential. Its stories of the Watchers, the Nephilim, divine judgment, and heavenly visions have shaped religious thought for more than 2,000 years. In this documentary, we'll separate history from legend, examine the evidence, and discover why one of antiquity's most influential books remains one of its most debated. Chapter 2. Who wrote the Book of Enoch? To understand the Book of Enoch, we must first understand the man whose name it bears. According to the book of Genesis, Enoch was the seventh generation from Adam and the great-grandfather of Noah. Unlike nearly every other person in Adam's family line, Enoch's story ends with an extraordinary statement. Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. With only a few verses describing his life, his mysterious departure inspired centuries of questions. Because Genesis says that God took Enoch without experiencing death, later Jewish tradition came to view him as a figure uniquely qualified to receive heavenly revelations. Over time, stories about Enoch expanded, eventually giving rise to the remarkable book that now bears his name. But did Enoch actually write it? Today, virtually all historians and biblical scholars agree that he did not. Based on its language, historical references, and surviving manuscripts, the Book of Enoch was most likely written by several anonymous Jewish authors between approximately the 3rd century BC and the 1st century BC, long after the biblical Enoch would have lived. In the ancient world, it was not unusual for writers to attribute their work to a revered figure from the distant past. Rather than claiming that person physically wrote every word, this practice often reflected the belief that the work preserved traditions associated with that individual. The Bible introduces Enoch as a man who walked with God. The Book of Enoch transforms him into a heavenly scribe and visionary. Understanding that distinction is essential to understanding both the book itself and the debate that has surrounded it for more than 2,000 years. Chapter 3. What does the Book of Enoch actually say? If the Book of Enoch had simply repeated the stories found in Genesis, it likely would have faded into history. Instead, it expands upon one of the Bible's shortest and most mysterious passages. In Genesis chapter 6, we're told that the sons of God took human wives, and their offspring became the Nephilim, described only as the mighty men of old, men of renown. The passage lasts just a few verses and offers almost no explanation. The Book of Enoch fills in those missing details. According to its account, a group of 200 angels known as the Watchers descended to earth under the leadership of Semjaza. Rather than carrying out God's will, they chose human wives, fathered giant offspring called the Nephilim, and taught humanity knowledge that had been forbidden, including warfare, weapon-making, astrology, enchantments, and sorcery. As violence spread across the earth, God pronounced judgment upon both the Watchers and their giant children. The rebellious angels were bound until the final judgment, while the Nephilim were destroyed before the flood. Enoch is then taken on extraordinary journeys through heaven, where he witnesses God's throne, the punishment awaiting the fallen angels, and visions of the coming Messiah and final judgment. Whether these events describe literal history, symbolic visions, or ancient religious tradition remains a matter of debate. Yet there is little question that the Book of Enoch profoundly shaped Jewish thought in the centuries before Jesus, and influenced how many people understood the mysterious events described in Genesis. Chapter 4. Why wasn't the Book of Enoch included in the Bible? If the Book of Enoch was so influential, why isn't it found in most Christian Bibles? The answer is not that it was secretly hidden or deliberately erased from history. Instead, it was the result of a long process in which Jewish and Christian communities determined which writings they believed were inspired by God and should be included in Scripture. This process became known as the formation of the biblical canon. Several factors were considered. Was the book connected to a recognized prophet or apostle? Did its teachings agree with the rest of Scripture? Had it been widely accepted and used by God's people over many generations? Although the Book of Enoch was respected by many Jews during the Second Temple period, most religious leaders eventually concluded that it did not meet those standards. Its anonymous authorship, its vivid descriptions of angels and heavenly journeys, and its absence from the traditional Hebrew scriptures all contributed to its exclusion from the canon recognized by most Jewish and Christian communities. There was, however, one remarkable exception. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church continued to preserve the Book of Enoch as inspired scripture, and it remains part of its biblical canon to this day. For centuries, many people in the Western world assumed the Book of Enoch had been lost forever. Then, in the 18th century, complete manuscripts were brought back from Ethiopia, and in the 20th century, fragments of the book were discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Those discoveries confirmed that the Book of Enoch was not a medieval invention. It was an ancient work known long before the time of Jesus. But that raises one final question. If the Book of Enoch is genuine and so highly respected in some Christian traditions, should Christians read it today? Chapter 5. Should Christians read the Book of Enoch? After nearly 2,000 years of debate, the question remains, should Christians read the Book of Enoch? The answer depends largely on what you expect from it. If you're looking for inspired scripture, most Christian churches would answer no. They believe the Bible alone carries that authority, and while the Book of Enoch contains fascinating ideas, it was ultimately not recognized as part of the biblical canon. However, if your goal is to better understand the world of the Bible, many historians, biblical scholars, and even Christian theologians believe the Book of Enoch has tremendous value. It provides a remarkable glimpse into the beliefs and questions that shaped Jewish thought during the centuries before Jesus. It also helps explain why the New Testament contains references and themes that would have been familiar to its earliest readers. Reading the Book of Enoch does not require accepting every story or every claim it makes. Like many ancient religious writings, it can be appreciated as an important historical document while still measuring its teachings against the Bible. Perhaps the greatest lesson the Book of Enoch offers is not about giants or fallen angels, but about history itself. Ancient texts often raise as many questions as they answer, reminding us that understanding the past requires careful study, humility, and a willingness to follow the evidence wherever it leads. Whether you believe the Book of Enoch preserves ancient truth, later religious tradition, or a mixture of both, one fact is beyond dispute. It has influenced biblical history more than almost any other book outside the Bible itself. If you enjoyed this documentary, please give it a like, subscribe to Unsettled History, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Should Christians read the Book of Enoch? We'd love to hear your perspective. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and never stop exploring history. Thanks for watching.